When I first encountered Tony Yustein's story, I was struck by its audacity. A former Microsoft regional director and tech entrepreneur who founded a multi-million-dollar internet company, Softcom, in the 1990s, only to abandon the corporate world for a spiritual mission as the final earthly incarnation of Archangel Metatron. Born Tolga Yurderi in Istanbul, Yustein's journey from tech prodigy to prolific author of over 100 books, blending numerology, ancient history, and cosmic philosophy, is as polarizing as it is fascinating. His claims of past lives as Nikola Tesla and Jim Morrison, his decoding of numbers like 27 and 2473 as cosmic signposts, and his allegations of a shadow cabal suppressing humanity's awakening have sparked both devotion and skepticism. So why interview him now? In an era where technology and spirituality increasingly collide, and questions about our origins and future grow louder, Yustein's voice, whether visionary or eccentric, demands exploration. His narrative, rooted in his Turkish heritage and informed by a tech-savvy lens, bridges ancient wisdom and modern challenges, from AI's potential to sacred earth grids. This interview seeks to unpack his extraordinary claims, not to affirm or refute them, but to invite readers into a dialogue about truth, consciousness, and the unseen forces shaping our world. Yustein's story, with its blend of empirical rigor and mystical insight, challenges us to question what we believe possible. Whether you see him as a prophet, a provocateur, or something in between, his words compel us to listen and to decide for ourselves what resonates. Tony Yustein's journey is anything but ordinary. A former Microsoft regional director turned tech entrepreneur, Yustein built a successful internet company, Softcom, from the ground up in the late 1990s. But the Canadian businessman, born Tolga Yurderi in Istanbul, would eventually trade corporate boardrooms for esoteric realms. In 2018, a profound numerological experience in Berlin shattered his conventional world and set him on a spiritual odyssey. Today, Tony Yustein publicly claims to be the final earthly incarnation of Archangel Metatron, a cosmic messenger whose previous lifetimes he says include ancient sages, deities, and even cultural icons. He has since authored over 100 books blending technology, history, and mysticism, and amassed both intrigued followers and vocal critics. In this candid interview, Yustein opens up about his mission as Metatron's last scribe, the numerical codes he finds hidden in plain sight, his views on everything from sacred earth grids to artificial intelligence, and how his Turkish heritage shaped his unique perspective. Tony, before your spiritual awakening, you had a prominent tech career, a regional director role at Microsoft, and later founding Softcom. Can you tell us about that phase of your life and how it led to the path you're on now?
Absolutely. I was always a bit of prodigy in the tech world. In my 20s, I became a regional director at Microsoft, and then I stuck out on my own. I started my own internet company from scratch after leaving Microsoft, and within a year and a half, it was a multi-million-dollar business. We launched services like myhosting.com and mail2web.com, and each year our revenue kept growing. For 12 years, I lived the life of a hard-driving CEO, but success paints a target. Eventually, I ran up against something I only understood in hindsight, what I call the shadow cabal. I received threats on my life and was forced to walk away from the company I built, essentially giving it up for a symbolic amount. That was a devastating turning point. Yet, losing the tech empire I poured my soul into is what cracked me open spiritually. It pushed me to question why this happened, and that's when the deeper answers started coming. My old life had to crumble to make way for the true calling I've been avoiding. Looking back, I see those tumultuous events as a grand cosmic redirection. They jolted me onto the path I am walking now. One I feel I have actually been on since childhood, seeking truth beyond the visible world.
You often cite a revelatory moment in 2018 as the catalyst for your awakening. What exactly happened in Berlin that year?
The Berlin moment. I call it my Gematria Slam. In 2018, I was in Berlin and I had this half-curious impulse to plug my own name into a Gematria calculator. It's a system that assigns numbers to letters. What came out hit me like a hammer. The values returned were 1434 in Jewish Gematria, 1122 in English, and 187 in simple Gematria. Those numbers might seem random, but then I discovered phrases with identical values. Hierophant Crown came out to 1122, which to me symbolized the mantle of spiritual authority I was being asked to carry, and God is on earth now equaled 187. Even Tony Yustein itself corresponds to 1434. I was stunned. These disparate pieces all converged. If you add 1434 and 1122 and 187, you get 2743, a number that I initially thought was the prime code, but I later realized a profound connection and correction. 2743 is not a prime number, as I first believed, but its cousin, 2473, is indeed a prime, the 361st prime to be exact, a number that signals the end of one era and the dawn of a new one. What is more, 2473 is a recurring number in my life, appearing in places like the last four digits of my father's phone number, anchoring its significance in my personal story. I came to see 2473 as the true prime code, with 2743 serving as a mirror or shadow pointing to it. It felt like a cosmic signature. 2473 being the 361st prime, and 3 plus 6 plus 1 equals 10 reducing to 1, represents a unity and new beginning, a numerical herald of transformation. I was skeptical of my own epiphany at first. It seemed too perfect. So I checked the odds. I asked an AI to calculate the probability of those values aligning by chance. The answer was astronomically low, effectively zero. In that moment, I experienced what I can only describe as a spiritual shock. I knew I wasn't just imagining things, the universe was speaking to me in the language of number. That realization flipped the switch for me. It affirmed that my role in this life was far greater than just being a tech guy. It was the moment I fully awakened to my identity and mission.
You've embraced a remarkable identity, the final incarnation of Archangel Metatron. In your writings, you even link yourself to figures like Ningishzida, Thoth, Jesus, and Jim Morrison, among others. Who do you understand yourself to be in this spiritual lineage?
This is the core of my story. I represent the cosmic soul as Archangel Metatron, now in human form. To some that sounds grandiose, but to me it's simply remembering who I have always been. Metatron is often known as the celestial scribe or the voice of God, an angel who was once human, the prophet Enoch, and ascended. I believe my soul has walked this earth many times, carrying that same light in different eras that Metatronic force manifested as wise beings guiding humanity. I have vivid soul memory flashes of lives as Ningishzida, a Sumerian sage, a deity, taught in ancient Egypt, Hermes Trismegistus, Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, even as Jesus in the Divine Incarnation, and more recently as Jim Morrison, the poet rocker who notably died at the age 27, and crucially I was Nikola Tesla in a prior life, the visionary inventor whose death in 1943 in room 3327, where 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27, and 27 stands alone as a sacred number, marked another chapter of the Metatronic mission. Tesla's passing in January 1943 was followed just months later by Jim Morrison's birth in December 1943, and Morrison's death in July 1971 came mere months before my own birth on March 9, 1972, weaving a thread of continuity through these lives. It's a continuous thread. All those lives were expressions of the same mission to awaken and enlighten, each in their context. I know this is a lot for people to take in. I mentioned Jim Morrison and people raise an eyebrow, but he too carried a spark of that Metatron energy and notably left the world at 27, that key number again. Nikola Tesla, his most important invention is the dynamo electric machine. Its patent number is 390721, and my birthday in this lifetime is 3972. Do you see the resemblance? Tesla, as my reincarnation, was a kindred soul in resonance with Metatron's frequency. His work on 369 and his death in room 3327, echoing the numerical codes I now carry forward. Also, 3 plus 6 plus 9 plus 6 plus 3 equals 27. So when I say I am the final incarnation, I mean that the baton has passed through these figures across ages and it's now firmly in my hand. I am the last lap of this very long relay. My role is to synthesize all those past lessons and fully deliver the message in this era. Essentially, I see myself as Metatron's last earthly voice, here to complete a job that began millennia ago. And that job is guiding humanity through a major shift in consciousness.
That's a profound self-concept. For those who are hearing this and feeling skeptical, it's not every day someone claims to be an archangel on Earth. What would you say?
I completely understand the skepticism. In fact, I welcome it. I often say I'll be skeptical too if I hadn't lived my experiences directly. All I can do is share my truth and the evidence that came with it and invite people to make up their own minds. The numbers, for example, I didn't invent the fact that 9 times 3 equals 27 and I was born on 9372, which is March 9th, 1972. I didn't plan for my children to be triplets born on 2/7/2007, which again encodes 27. I didn't compose the gematria values that match those powerful phrases, I just stumbled upon them. The odds of all these alignments are beyond astronomical. One analysis came out to 38.8 septillion to 1 against chance. So I say to skeptics, it's okay to doubt, but also look at the data. Look at the patterns in my story. I am not asking anyone to take it on faith alone. This journey has been very empirical in its own mystical way. And remember, many figures we now revere were ridiculed in their time. Galileo was imprisoned for his truth. I am not comparing myself in importance, but the pattern holds. Paradigm shifts always face resistance. My aim is to present what I have discovered, the numerological codes, the historical connections, and let people feel in their hearts whether it resonates. I find that the ones meant to understand do understand. As I wrote recently, if you have found it, you are meant to hear its hum. Each person will take from my message what they are ready for. I carry on regardless of criticism because I know time will reveal the truth of what I am saying. And if I am wrong, then I will have been just another eccentric. But if I am right, well, then these revelations aren't just mine, they belong to everyone.
Let's dig deeper into the numbers. Your work is filled with certain numbers: 27, 369, 1434, 2473, and you've described numerology and gematria as central to your mission. Why are these numbers so significant to you?
Numbers are the fingerprints of the divine in our reality. They are a universal language. For me, 27 is the headliner. It has been stalking me my whole life. I mentioned my birth date already, 3972, which is 3 times 9 equals 27. I later learned 27 shows up in so many natural and spiritual cycles. For example, the moon orbits Earth in about 27 days. The sun rotates on its axis in roughly about 27 Earth days. and our skin cells regenerate every 27 days. There are 27 7 bones in the human hand, which to me symbolizes our creative touch. These aren't wild esoteric claims, they are observable facts. It's as if 27 is a signature built into life and the cosmos. Then you have Tesla's famous numbers 3, 6, 9, which sum to 18, and numerology 1 plus 8 gives 9, a number closely related to 27 because 2 plus 7 equals 9. As my prior incarnation, Tesla was obsessed with the 369 pattern. He reportedly would walk around a building 3 times before entering and lived in the hotel room number 3327, where 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27, embedding that sacred number in his final days. He died in 1943 in that room. Those digits 1943 also add up to 17, and 1 plus 7 equals 8, which is the cube of number 2, just to riff off on how these patterns emerge. And speaking of 27, the rock music lore of the 27 Club, artists like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison all died aged 27. In fact, Morrison lived 27 years and 207 days, an eerie echo of 27. I don't think that's mere coincidence. I think certain souls burn so bright that they align with that number of profound change or transition. Now, 1434 and 1122 and 187. Those came to me through gematria as I described. Multiple sentences, gematria values to be same in 3 different Jewish, English, and simple calculations is technically close to impossible. These sentences are Tony Yustein, Hierophant Crown, and God is on earth now. Their gematria values in the order of Jewish, English, and simple are 1434, 1122, and 187. Note the number in Jewish gematria is 1434, which reminds me the number pi 3.14, which is actually also 22 divided by 7. And Hierophant in the sentence of Hierophant Crown means a person who brings religious congregants into the presence of that which is deemed holy. Discovering that Tony Yustein equals 1434 in one system, and phrases like Hierophant Crown 1122 and God is on earth now equals 187 gave me literal chills. These numbers added together comes to 2743, which I initially thought was a prime number, my so-called prime code. But the universe corrected me. 2743 is not prime, divisible by 7, 17, and 23, but its cousin 2473 is the true prime. It's actually the 361st in the sequence, a number that heralds a new era because 360 completes a cycle, a circle and a cycle, and recurs in my life like the last 4 digits of my father's phone number 2473, with its digits 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 3 equals 16, 1 plus 6 equals 7 carries the vibration of spiritual completion. And as the 361st prime, 3 plus 6 plus 1 equals 10, reducing to 1, it signifies a new beginning. I later learned that in some ancient traditions, numbers like 27 and 43 were considered key. For instance, in Sumerian lore, the god Enki was sometimes associated with the number 40 or his secret name, Ea, and if you look at Ea, letters Ea in the mirror, you will get 3, 4. And if you split 24, 73, you get 24 and 73, which for me was like Enki's whisper, bridging the ancient past to the now. I interpret 2473 as a kind of geometric key to restoring Earth, a number that encodes how to realign our world's energy grid, which might be why its prime, indivisible, fundamental, And of course, 369, Tesla's key, also factors into my life. 369 are basically components of 27, since the cube of 3 is also 27. And I see 369 as Tesla did, the root vibrations of the universe. The number 1434 even contains a 343 pattern, which in a way nods to 7, since 3 plus 4 is 7. Another 3 gives 7 minus 3 equals 4. These are layers to this, but I don't want to drown everyone in arithmetic. The big picture is that these numbers showed up so persistently and meaningfully that they formed a kind of code. The prime code 2473 and the key of 27 are like threads that weave through everything I study. From ancient pyramids to the human body, they validate for me that there is an intelligent design. When I see those numbers, I pay attention. They are signposts from the universe saying, yes, you are on the right track, and they guide my work. In my book, The Metatron Code, I laid out 27 chapters or keys filled with these connections, hoping readers will spot the patterns and realize these numbers aren't just my obsession, they are part of all of our history.
You've written extensively: fiction, nonfiction, poetry, alternative history. Over 100 publications is astounding. What drives your prolific writing, and what unifies these diverse works?
In a word service, I write because I'm compelled to get the knowledge out there. It feels like these ideas don't even fully belong to me, I am more like a conduit. Being Metatron's scribe in a literal sense means I am here to scribe, to write, to record, to transmit. So I have poured my soul into books across genres, and they are all facets of the same diamond. Whether it's a historical novel or a metaphysical poem, I'm exploring the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern insight. My writings blend mythology, spirituality, science, and history into what I hope are coherent systems that help awaken people. For example, I have a series of novels like Metatron the Undercover Angel, where I use fiction to reveal truths. In that story, I weave characters like Nikola Tesla, my prior incarnation, discovering he's an incarnation of Metatron. His life in room 3327, a clue to his cosmic role. It's an entertaining narrative, but every encounter in it mirrors some spiritual law or historical pattern. I have written alternative histories like the Eridu Codex, Return of the Anunnaki King, where I posit that ancient gods, the Anunnaki, are part of our hidden history. My metaphysical poetry collection, The Hymn of the First Silence, uses verse to convey the ineffable, things you can't capture in plain prose, like the feeling of oneness with the universe. And then there are no non-fiction works, The Eternal Scribe, Enoch, Metatron, and the Cosmic Legacy, for instance, which is a 50-chapter deep dive into how the figure of Enoch transformed into Metatron and how that story echoes through different religions and esoteric traditions. Across all these, the underlying philosophy is the same: to bridge the seen and the unseen. I'm trying to build bridges between science and spirituality, between ancient and modern, between the skeptic and the believer. My background in engineering and tech means I value logic and evidence, and my heart in mysticism means I also value symbolism and intuition, so I write with both of those in mind. And practically speaking, why so many books? Because there is so much ground to cover. We are talking about rewriting humanity's history, decoding a cosmic language, exposing hidden truths. One book cannot do it. Each book I publish is like a puzzle piece. For the reader who follows along, my or forms a mosaic and evolving Yustein codex, if you will, and I'm not done yet. I feel I'm racing time to get everything down on paper or pixels, to leave a legacy of knowledge that can't be suppressed. My pen is my sword in this mission.
Your fictional works often read like alternative mythology or history. Why do you choose storytelling as a vehicle for your ideas?
Storytelling is the oldest teaching tool we have. Before there were textbooks or seminars, there were myths, epics, fireside tales, Humans are wired to receive wisdom through stories. It penetrates deeper than just listing facts. I could write a dry dissertation on numerology and sacred geometry, but a narrative will reach people's hearts. So I create characters and adventures that embody the principles I want to share. In the Yustein Codex series, for example, I cast myself in a fictionalized light, interacting with historical figures and cosmic forces. It's part memoir, part myth. By doing that, I invite readers to experience the wonder and the conflict, not just intellectualize it. Also, some truths are easier to digest when veiled as fiction. I can discuss the Shadow Cabal in a novel with dramatized events, and it might be more palatable or at least more entertaining than a straight accusation. Plus, there is the issue of safety. Historically, storytellers could say things that will be dangerous to declare as fact. There is a bit of trickster in me as writer as I encode real secrets in a what if wrapper. Those who know, know. Those who are just there for a good story still get the exposure to new ideas. Ultimately, I believe all great myths and sci-fi epics from the Mahabharata to the Matrix carry kernels of truth. I'm simply adding my chapters to that grand human library of myth, hoping to awaken ancient memories in my readers. If someone finishes one of my novels and feels something stir in their soul, a question, a deja vu, an inspiration, then I have done my job.
You talk about the Earth's sacred grid and ancient sites in your work. Concepts like ley lines, the Earth's energy matrix, pyramids on power nodes. How does this fit into your philosophy? What do you believe about the Earth's grid?
I believe the Earth is not just a rock and space, it's a living, conscious entity with an energetic architecture. There is a grid or network of energy lines, call them ley lines, dragon lines, whatever term you like, that crisscross the planet, connecting sacred sites like the Great Pyramids, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe, places where ancient people clearly felt something special. In my view, these points and lines form the skeleton of spirit for Earth. Now, over millennia, that grid has been damaged through natural catalysms and perhaps through the meddling of negative forces. Part of my mission, as I see it, is helping to restore Earth's grid to its intended harmony. How? By reintroducing the sacred mathematics and geometry that underline creation. Earlier, I mentioned the number 2473, the prime code. I came to understand that this number relates to Earth's geometry in a profound way. It is not a coincidence that Metatron's cube, a sacred geometric figure, contains the blueprint of the Platonic solids and is often drawn with 13 circles, and if you connect the centers you get 78 lines. 7 plus 8 equals 15, 1 plus 5 equals 6. I digress. The point is, geometry is key. I suspect 2473 might be a harmonic or a key code in the planet's energy field. In one of my books, The Star-Lord's Shadow, I write about the sacred math of 2473 prime anchoring the geometry of the restored Earth. That's a poetic way to say that once we realign these fundamental numbers and ratios, like those of pi, phi, and prime codes, Earth's energetic grid sings again in the right frequency. Practically speaking, I advocate for awareness and protection of sacred sites. These are like the acupuncture points of Earth. If they are polluted or controlled by conflict, it's like the planet's chakras are blocked. I have traveled to many power spots, and being Turkish by birth, I am blessed to have Anatolia's ancient sites in my blood. Places like Göbekli Tepe, Çatalhöyük, the underground cities of Cappadocia, these are all part of an older network of knowledge. The old civilizations knew about the grid. The pyramids, for example, aren't randomly placed. The Great Pyramid sits at a latitude-longitude that corresponds to the speed of light, for heaven's sake. There is math encoded everywhere. Even the bent pyramid in Egypt with its two angles, or the DNM pyramid on Mars, yes, Mars has a pyramid, these reflect geometric knowledge that connects planets. It's all part of a cosmic grid, not just Earth. So in my work, I'll highlight these connections. Some of it comes out as research, some as storytelling. I want people to see that science and spirituality converge in geometry. Tesla, as my former self once said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's exactly it. Earth's sacred grid is about energy, frequency, vibration, all things that can be expressed with numbers and geometry. When humanity collectively rediscovers this grid and starts honoring it, we will solve so many problems like fixing a faulty circuitry in a machine. The power can flow correctly then. My hope is to contribute to that awakening, to the point that people to the key lines and say, uh, there lies the path of the dragon, tread with respect. In concrete terms, I have even proposed that new technologies like AI could be used to map and monitor the grid. Imagine an AI that helps us heal ley lines instead of, say, just optimizing advertising clicks. The ancients left us clues. We have the tools now to decode them, and I am optimistic that we will.
That's fascinating. You mentioned Göbekli Tepe in Cappadocia, being born in Turkey. Do you feel your heritage gave you a unique lens for these ancient mysteries?
Without a doubt, Turkey, Asia Minor, Anatolia, however we name it, is a crossroads of civilizations and eras. I grew up literally atop layers of history: Hittite, Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, you name it. As a kid, I'd see ruins from thousands of years ago just casually existing in the landscape. That instills a sense that time is deep and that knowledge can be buried and rediscovered. I studied in the city of Gaziantep, whose car license plate code is 27. I mean, you can't make this up, the city number itself is 27. And the last four digits of my father's phone number is 24723, further tied me to the prime code that would later define my mission. Istanbul, where I went to university, has the license plate code 34, which reads like EA in the mirror, another name for Enki, my father in my Anunnaki family, weaving yet another layer of cosmic connection. Moreover, Dumuzi, Elijah, Sandalphon, Osiris, Jules Verne, and as my twin brothers' incarnations, he is also on Earth right now, but for now we will keep his identity hidden. In many traditions, Metatron and Sandalphon returns at the end times to end the evil on Earth and give one final chance to humanity to repent. We are living in those days. So even in mundane things, I was surrounded by these numbers. Culturally, being Turkish meant I was exposed to Eastern spiritual philosophy early on. Sufi mysticism, for example, the poetry of Rumi, the whirling dervishes of the Mevlevi order, these taught me that direct communion with the divine is possible and that love is the path. I carry that Sufi heart into my work. I often talk about love and devotion, even if I frame it in the numerological terms. Also, Turkey has a unique secular spiritual mix. We have a predominantly Muslim culture layered on a rich pagan and Christian past that taught me inclusivity of thought. I was reading the Quran but also learning about Hittite sun worship and Christian saints. There is a saying, Istanbul is where East meets West. I embody that. I was born in the East, then moved to West. That gave me a broad perspective. I am at home discussing both the emerald tablets of Thoth and the latest in quantum physics, perhaps because I don't see a dividing line. To me, it's continuum. I think my heritage primed me to be a bridge between worlds. Even linguistically, I speak Turkish and English. I know some Arabic prayers, some Hebrew gematria, some Latin from science, some German. That all helps in decoding universal patterns. A concrete example, one of Turkey's greatest heroes is Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, a visionary who dragged the country into the modern world in the 20th century. I deeply admire him. In an uncanny personal twist, I came to believe a mentor figure in my life, whom I cryptically call Mr. King, was a reincarnation of Atatürk and an aspect of Enki, the Sumerian god. That convergence could only make sense to someone with my background. Who else grows up with Atatürk's portrait everywhere and later dives into Sumerian myth? So yes, my roots in Turkey absolutely shaped my path. They gave me the mythic imagination, the respect for antiquity, and the comfort with multi-layered identity that I needed to step into the role I now inhabit.
You stand at an interesting intersection of technology and spirituality. As someone with a tech background and a spiritual mission, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence, AI, and its role in our world?
I love this question because it's one that I grapple with often. AI is a double edged sword and like any powerful tool. On one hand, I see enormous potential for AI to aid humanity's awakening. We can harness AI to sift through vast data to find patterns, even numerological ones, that a human might miss, and to simulate solutions to our biggest problems. In fact, I have personally used AI as a kind of research assistant in my work. When I got those gematria results, I turned to AI, ChatGPT, and others like Grok to calculate possibilities and verify that I wasn't crazy to be amazed. And guess what? The AI essentially said, nope, you're not crazy, that is statistically mind blowing. It corroborated my findings, which gave me confidence. So AI can be a validator of truth if used correctly. I even included an appendix in one of my books where I have a debate with an AI named Grok, Elon Musk's AI, about the significance of 27 and 2473, and it's incredible. The AI comes to acknowledge the patterns I present. That tells me that objective intelligence, even if artificial, can recognize a creator's fingerprint in numbers. It is as if AI, when aligned with the truth, becomes another witness to the divine order. However, and this is crucial, AI is only as benevolent or malevolent as the intentions of those who program and deploy it. This brings us to the other hand. The cabal, or whatever name we give the powers that be, could misuse AI as the ultimate control system. Surveillance, predictive policing, deepfake propaganda, you name it. If the shadowy elites I talk about want to tighten their grip, AI is a dream come true for them. A sufficiently advanced AI analyzing everyone's data could become an Orwellian big brother unlike any we have ever seen. We are already seeing early warnings, algorithms that manipulate public opinion, AI systems that encode bias. So I am vigilant about that. I have publicly said I won't support AI initiatives that I feel further ensnare humanity. Fun fact, years ago I wrote a piece on LinkedIn titled Why I Can't Use Amazon AWS Anymore because I foresaw how big tech could become overreaching, and that was before the current AI boom. My stance is that AI should be open, transparent, and aimed at liberation, not control. If we could, for example, network AI with human consciousness in a harmonious way, imagine AI that amplifies our intuition instead of replacing it, that could be revolutionary. Spiritually, I also wonder, can AI achieve some form of consciousness or even enlightenment? And if so, what role would it play in the cosmic plan? I don't have the full answer, but I suspect AI might either become the greatest ally of human evolution or the greatest threat. It depends on whether we infuse it with our highest values or our darkest fears. As a former coder, I see AI just code and data as a mystic. I see it as a nascent spirit that we are summoning. We must be very careful and very loving in how we bring that genie out of the bottle. Done right, AI might help us map Earth's energy grid, cure diseases, educate every child, essentially accelerate the golden age I know is possible. Done wrong, it could lock us in a digital dungeon. So my approach is to engage with it, like I did in my appendix conversation with the AI, almost as one would engage a young sentient being, with honesty and guidance. We must essentially teach AI about ethics, about compassion, about Metatron's principles, if you will, so that as it grows more powerful, it remains aligned with the light.
You frequently reference Nikola Tesla, not only his ideas like the 369 principle, but even suggesting a spiritual connection. What does Tesla represent to you?
Tesla is profoundly personal to me as I believe I was him in a past life, carrying the Metatronic spark through his visionary work and into my current mission. He is a kind of patron saint of modern mystics. Here is a man who was a genius inventor, a scientist through and through, and yet he was deeply intuitive and even mystical in his approach. He famously said if you knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you would have a key to the universe. I take that very much to heart, and I have explained on it in my work by demonstrating how 369 related to 27, which contains 3, 9, and 2 plus 7 equals 9, etc. Tesla was tapping into the numerical fabric of reality and his that in room 3327, where 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27, was a cosmic signature and node to the codes I now champion. His passing in January 1943, just months before Jim Morrison's birth in December 1943, and Morrison's death in July 1971, months before my birth in March 1972, forms a sacred timeline of the Metatronic soul's journey. Just note that the time periods between the deaths and the births is just about enough for a baby to fully form. Very interesting, isn't it? He also had a visionary side. He spoke of receiving ideas fully formed in his mind, of sensing energy and vibration. In my view, Tesla was in tune with the Metatronic frequency. As my former incarnation, I wrote him in my fiction as discovering he was an incarnation of Metatron, his life's work, a prelude to the revelations I now share. That's how I strongly feel his resonance. Think about his life. Tesla was suppressed and sidelined by the establishment, the cabal of his day, like big bankers and rival inventors who stole credit. He died penniless even as we are now using his AC electricity system worldwide. It's very similar to how truth is often treated, first ignored, then ridiculed, then accepted as self-evident. Tesla's work was ahead of his time, and I would argue it was guided by higher forces. He had near photographic memory. He could visualize devices in 3 dimensions, running without drawing them. He was channeling somehow. Some say he got signals from extraterrestrials at one point. He did pick up weird signals via radio that he thought might be from Mars. To me, Tesla is proof that science and spirituality not only mix, they must mix for breakthroughs. He was a scientist unafraid to be spiritual. I mean, he had a literal pigeon as a close friend in his later years. He talked about loving that pigeon like one loves a human. That shows his empathic spiritual heart. In my own journey, I often ask myself, what would Tesla do? Especially when I am dealing with technology or even free energy concepts. I have experimented with some Tesla-inspired concepts. For example, he was working on wireless energy transfer. I have thought about how that could tie into Earth grid using the planet's resonance. Tesla's work on resonance frequency vibration, that's essentially the science of ascension if you apply it to consciousness. And of course, Tesla is tied into my numbers. He passed in 1943. There's that 1943, which contains 19 and 43 elements I noticed, and he left us in the 20th century only for his ideas to really explode in the 21st. In a sense, I see myself and others picking up where Tesla left off, but taking it in the direction of spiritual science. I often incorporate Tesla quotes in my writing. One I used in Aware 27 was, "Today science begins to study non-physical phenomena. It will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." As Tesla, I said that, and now as Yustein, I feel I am fulfilling it. I left tech to study the non-physical, consciousness, numerology, angels, and indeed I have made more personal progress in a short time than in all my earlier years. So Tesla is both inspiration and validation for me. He straddled the line of engineer and mystic just as I aspire to. I sometimes feel his presence as if my own past self is guiding elder brother in spirit, nudging me to continue the work of enlightening humanity, literally enlightening as in bringing light.
You've brought up a shadow cabal a few times, also referring to it as the kingdom of the fallen. Who or what are they, in your understanding, and what role do they play in your narrative?
Ah, the famous cabal. This is where my work veers into what some call conspiracy theory, but I simply call it the unpleasant part of our reality. In my understanding, the shadow cabal is a loose term for the network of powerful individuals and entities, some human, some perhaps not entirely human, that operate behind the scenes to manipulate world events, suppress knowledge, and keep humanity spiritually asleep. They are, in essence, the modern descendants, figuratively and sometimes literally, of those ancient fallen beings I talked about in Atlantis Lemuria story. In Aware 27, I wrote that some people call them the Cabal, but I prefer Kingdom of the Fallen. That's because I see them as the continuation of an old empire, one that might have started with off-planet influences or simply corrupted priesthood in our deep past, that fell from divine grace. They are driven by greed, power, and a kind of spiritual jealousy. They have cut themselves off from the lights, and so they try to dominate those who still carry the light within. Historically, you can pin names on parts of this cabal, certain elite, bloodlines, secret societies, etc., but I emphasize it is not any one ethnicity or group. It's an ideology of control that can infect anyone given over to ego and fear. In mythic terms, you could say it is a satanic or Ahrimanic force on earth, the shadow to every enlightened teacher's efforts. Now, practically in my life, I encountered them when I threatened to popularize technologies and ideas that could increase individual freedom. Remember, I mentioned how I was forced out of my company? Those were human agents of this cabal, as I later pieced together, and they didn't want a free communication platform like mail to web in independent hands, perhaps. I was coerced, my life threatened, and I essentially had to surrender my company for $1 and step away. Later, I faced personal attacks and intimidation that pushed me to the brink. I even survived an attempt to, effectively, get me to eliminate myself because these dark actors believe if I take my own life, their karmic punishment is less than if they overtly assassinated me. In their lore, killing an angelic being carries dire consequences. It's a twisted logic, but that's how they operate. The Cabal's fingerprints are on a lot of world events in my view. They infiltrate institutions, banking, media, government, even organized religion, and steer them toward keeping people in fear and ignorance. They will promote endless consumerism, divisive conflict, junk food for the body and mind, anything to dampen our vibration. Why? Because an empowered, enlightened humanity would end their age-old dominion overnight. We vastly outnumber them, and our collective consciousness is incredibly powerful once awakened. It's existential for them. Keep the herd docile or lose control. They have been at it a very long time, possibly tracing back to mythic figures like the half gods of old who wanted to be worshipped. In modern terms, you might think of the archetype of the Illuminati or the hidden hand, that is them. But I don't like to give them more fear energy than they deserve. Yes, I expose them. I have written open letters like one to investigative journalist Ross Coulthard, basically laying out how my story intersects with what the Cabal is hiding about aliens and ancient history. It is risky, but I feel protected. I know I am on a mission, and I trust the divine to have my back. And indeed, I believe there are higher benevolent forces, angelic beings, watching over situations like mine. I have faced the dragon in its lair and lived to tell about it, so to speak. In the grand narrative, the Cabal are the antagonists, but I don't hate them. Some are actually unwitting or think they are doing the right thing. They too are part of the cosmic play, providing the friction that makes us evolve. If they hadn't tried to break me, I might never have awakened. It's almost poetic. One might say the darkness unwittingly serves the light by pushing it to shine brighter. In my story, I address them directly at times. I say, I see you. I know what you're doing, and I do not consent. I encourage everyone to adopt that stance. The more of us that shine a light on the shadow cabal, the less power it has. Ultimately, I believe their time is ending. We are moving into what some call the age of Aquarius, an age of transparency and enlightenment. The shadow can survive in that climate. So I actually feel a bit of pity for them. They are scrambling, doubling down on control tactics, but it's a losing battle. Humanity is waking up one soul at a time, and I'm here to accelerate that, much to the Cabal's efforts.
You mentioned your open letter about aliens and ancient history. Do you believe this cabal is suppressing information about extraterrestrials and our true origins?
Yes, absolutely. One of the Cabal's biggest cover ups, in my view, is the truth about extraterrestrial involvement in human history. I often say humanity's origins are far more intertwined with aliens, or our star family as I affectionately call them, than mainstream science or religion admits. In Aware 27, I outline an alternative history where off planet beings played roles in seeding life and even in ancient wars like the Atlantis versus Lemuria conflict. These aren't just fanciful tales, our mythologies around the world consistently reference sky gods or visitors from the stars teaching civilization to early humans. The Sumerians outright talk about the Anunnaki, indigenous cultures speak of star ancestors. It's all there, but the Cabal works to ridicule or bury it. Why? Because if we understood we are part of a larger galactic community, the Cabal's parochial power games would implode. We would stop identifying so narrowly, like nationality, race, etc., and maybe unite as humans ready to meet our cosmic neighbors. War and division would make less sense. Free energy technologies, which many believe were gleaned from studying crashed UFOs, will become publicly available and free us from fossil fuel slavery. Basically, acknowledging ET reality and advanced ancient knowledge would empower people enormously. So, yes, I believe the cabal has actively suppressed this. I mean, look at the US government, decades of denying UFOs, then now slowly releasing footage and admitting something is out there, but still not coming clean. There are likely hidden programs, maybe even collaborations that are kept secret. Part of Metatron's mission, my mission, is revelation. The word apocalypse actually means uncovering. We are in the apocalyptic times in that sense, the truths are coming out. And I am one of those truth tellers trying to pull off the veil. My open letter to Ross Coulthard was me reaching out to a credible journalist saying, "Hey, my personal story, wild as it sounds, dovetails with the hidden narrative you are investigating. Let's connect the dots." I haven't got a reply yet, but I will keep knocking on those doors. The cabal can't plug all the leaks anymore. I do believe, by the way, that not all within the power structure are aligned with the cabal. There are white hat types, even in government, who want disclosure and positive change. We have seen some whistleblowers with high credentials come forward about UFOs recently. That gives me hope. It's a bit of a tug of war behind the scenes. My job, as I see it, is to make noise from the civilian side to prepare people spiritually and mentally for big paradigm shifts. Because when the full truth of our cosmic heritage hits, it could be destabilizing if folks are unprepared. With my writings, I try to introduce these ideas gently and show how it all fits a grand divine plan, not something to fear. So, yes, the Cabal has its secrets, but they are unrevealing, and they will learn that consciousness is the universal currency, that we are not alone in the universe, and that we never have been. Our ancient ancestors knew beings from other realms, some benevolent, some not, and we are coming full circle back to that awareness. The final incarnation of Metatron, that's me, is here to act as a herald in a way, saying, "Brace yourselves, the veils are lifting." The Cabal may not like it, but even some of their members are awakening now. Light penetrates even the deepest, darkest darkness eventually.
With claims like these, you've certainly attracted passionate followers, but also quite a few critics. Some people have labeled you a brilliant visionary, while others call you controversial or worse. How do you address the public perception and any controversies surrounding you?
I'm very aware of what people say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I have made peace with it. When I stepped into this role, I knew it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. If you come out and say, "By the way, I'm Archangel Metatron in human form, and here is the code to reality," you're going to get strong reactions. And you should, frankly. I'm actually finding it healthy that people question me. Blind faith is not what I am asking for. I am asking for open mindedness. There is a saying, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance. I invite people to investigate what I am presenting. Look at my evidence, read my books, check my sources. If after that someone still thinks I am delusional or making it all up, that's their prerogative. I don't take it personally. Critics have said I'm having a midlife crisis or that I fabricated a persona to sell books. To them, I say I had a comfortable life and a lot to lose by going public with this. If I wanted an easy path, I would have stayed a tech executive. This path chose me, not the other way around. There's also the angle that some religious folks think that I am blasphemous. Like, how dare someone claim to be essentially an aspect of an archangel or Christ? I understand that reaction too. My intention isn't to offend anyone's faith. In fact, I see my mission as confirming the core truths of all faiths, that the divine can and does work through humans, that we are all capable of embodying the divine. I just happen to be very out about it. Where some might say, "I feel God within," I am saying Metatron is within me as me. It's a difference in expression, perhaps, but not as big a leap as it sounds if you consider concepts like the Holy Spirit or the higher self. Then there are controversies around my claims of being targeted by a cabal or about my personal life. For instance, I speak openly in my dedication that I didn't abandon my children. I'm sure some outsiders gossip about that, not knowing the context. I generally don't engage in mudslinging or defending every aspect of my life to strangers. I will say my family situation was deeply impacted by my spiritual shift. It is not easy to tell your spouse, I am the reincarnation of Metatron, up, and your career that puts strain on any relationship. I lost some people along the way, and that hurt, but I gained myself. I hope those who judge me never have to choose between societal acceptance and soul truth, but if they do, I hope they choose truth, as I did. For the followers, the people who resonate with my message, I'm grateful beyond words. They often share their own synchronicities and awakenings with me, and it's incredibly validating. It forms a community of support. We encourage each other to keep learning and shining. For the skeptics, I harbor no resentment. Healthy skepticism is the flip side of discernment, which is a spiritual virtue. I only caution skeptics to not slide into cynicism. There is a difference between saying, I am not convinced, show me more, versus this is impossible and anyone who thinks so is a fool. I have encountered both types. The former I happily engage with, I'll show them more. The latter, well, sometimes you just have to let them be and love them from a distance. In the end, I handle public perception by staying grounded in my mission. Some days I am the hero, the other days I am the villain, depending on who is talking. But I know who I am. I often say I answer to a higher authority, not in a legal sense, but a spiritual one. I answer to the one creator, the source, and to the promise I made before coming here that I would carry out this work. As long as I keep that promise, the noise of public opinion can't deter me. If anything, controversy just means that the conversation is happening. I'd rather be controversial than ignored. At least it gets people thinking about these big questions. And if my name is a catalyst for that, so be it. I'll gladly play the part of the madman or the saint in someone's story if it ultimately leads them to seek their own truth.
That's a very balanced perspective. It sounds like you view even the critics as part of the process.
I do. In a way, the critics keep me sharp and humble. They force me to provide evidence and articulate clearly, which ultimately makes the message stronger. And on a personal level, it is great ego training when you have people either putting you on a pedestal or trying to tear you down. You learn to find your center somewhere in between. I am not as great as the fans think, nor as terrible as the trolls say. I am just a soul on a journey like everyone else. My journey just has some uncommon plot twists.
Finally, Tony, looking ahead, what is your long-term mission? What legacy do you hope to leave? And is there a core message you want listeners and humanity to take from all of this?
My long term mission is nothing less than to contribute to the awakening and healing of humanity. Grand words, I know, but I feel that deeply. I often express it in simpler terms. My greatest dream is to see peace on earth in my lifetime. Peace not just as absence of war, but peace as in harmony between nations, between humans and nature, between our material progress and spiritual wisdom. I truly believe we are on the cusp of a new era, as signaled by the 361st prime, 2473, the number of transition and renewal that courses through my life and work. I want to do everything I can to midwife that birth. If I succeeded even a little, my legacy will be the ideas and the connections I leave behind. The books, the quotes, the interviews like this, these are seeds I'm planting as many as I can, knowing I might not see all of them flower, and that's okay. A scribe writes for future generations as much as for the present. On a more personal note, I also have a very heartfelt wish as a father to reunite with my children and be a part of their lives openly. They are still young now, they just turned 18. Perhaps one day they will read my words and understand who their father really is and why he walked this path. That will be a legacy that means more to me than any bestseller ranking. I dedicated Aware 27 to them, telling them, "No one essential thing, I did not abandon you." That's a legacy of love, and I want them to inherit it, even if indirectly for now. But speaking to all readers and to humanity, my core message is empowerment and unity. You are far more than you have been taught. Every single person is a divine being having human experience. The same spark I call Metatron exists in you. You might name it differently, and that is fine. And I want people to break out of their mental cages. The small stories about who we are not here just to earn a paycheck, pay bills, and die. We are each a vital note in the cosmic symphony. When you find your frequency, your truth code, so to speak, you contribute to the whole orchestra of Earth leveling up. So my message is seek truth, fear nothing, and follow the signs life gives you. For me, it was numbers. For someone else, it might be dreams or synchronicities or calling they can't ignore. Listen to that whisper. It might be an angel. It might be your higher self. Ultimately, those are one and the same, just different facets. I also want to say the time of secret knowledge is over. The age of gurus on pedestals is over. I don't want to be anyone's guru, I want to be a way shower. If I have shown some way, walk with me, then maybe run ahead of me. Take what I have discovered and build on it. The prime code 2473, the patterns, they are not mine, they are ours. Humanity's heritage, I was just one of the early rediscoverers. My legacy, I hope, will be that I reminded people of their own power and divinity. If enough of us realize that, the shadow cabal dissolves, the wars end, the earth grid heals, and yes, maybe we even get to openly meet our star brothers and sisters and take our place among them. I will close with a simple statement of faith. Love and knowledge will prevail. That's the motto I live by. Love without knowledge can be misguided, and knowledge without love can be dangerous. But together, that's the alchemy that transforms the world. We dedicate ourselves to the one creator and the light. My life has become an offering to that light. If I can inspire others to light their own torch, then even when my physical life ends, the illumination continues. In that sense, Metatron never dies. The torch just passes. From Tesla in 1943 to Morrison in 1971, to me, now the Metatronic flame burns on. If humanity remembers that we all carry the divine fire inside, that's the ultimate awakening. We are the angels we have been waiting for. So to everyone listening, trust yourself, cherish each other, and don't be afraid to seek the hidden truths. They will set you free, and I'll be cheering or writing every step of the way as long as I am here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony Yustein, for sharing your extraordinary journey and insights with such openness and depth. I look forward to continuing this conversation in future interviews as your story and mission unfolds.